Good morning. I wanted to just spend a little bit of time this morning and kind of touch base primarily with our online folks. I shared this with the church on Sunday, and so I thought I would just kind of separately share it with you. I wanted to give you an update and particularly focus on our online ministry. We have been online with our audio messages since about May of 2014. But with the pandemic and everything, March required us to go to a video platform as well. So, of necessity, we did that in March, and we've been doing this now for about 10 months. When we started, of course, we had everyone in our church online for about 2 months during April and May. And then in June, we opened up for on-site services. So for about 5 months, what I would do is I'd come in on Saturday or Friday. We would record the message. We would get everything all uploaded so that everything went active at about 10:30 on Sunday morning. And the reason we did that is we wanted people to get into the habit of being at church during that time so that when they did come back, they were just used to it. So we started doing that, and then basically we realized that people were actually hearing two messages. There was actually, because the thing that was said in one wouldn't necessarily be said in the other one. So we went to a live stream platform at the end of the year. And when we did that, we had to change a number of things with our on-site service. So for instance, now we only had 30 minutes to get everything done before we had to be preaching. So people had to tell me a week ahead of time if they wanted to do children's sermon or special music. It required me to time out testimonies and prayer requests and everything else in order to hit that 10:30 mark. So what happened was we had to do that in order to be able to start at 10:30. And then if we had a snag in the live stream, they'd text JT or Josh, and they would have to get up and go to the back, and they'd be in the back trying to figure out what was happening with the live stream. So that would be distracting to me. If it didn't work, then I'd go home and spend anywhere between 3 and 5 hours getting everything all uploaded and corrected and deleted. And if my boys came over for lunch, it meant that our conversation was on how do we fix this and what do we do. And so it started to really impact our on-site services. Even this past Sunday, we did not have time for testimonies. I had to cut the prayer request short. I had to cut the 2 verses out of the music that we had planned. So many of us involved in the service really started to reach this overwhelming level of frustration, particularly me. And so this past week, I shared with the board on Wednesday night, I shared with the church on Sunday, just how much of a toll this was actually been taking. And the reality of it is the last 2 months, Sundays are miserable for me. I have dreaded it because I just knew Sunday was going to be a day full of nothing but problems. As we talked about as a board, we started to realize that a lot of people on the board and people in the church were noticing how the service had changed. And we really resented the idea of the clock and the technology that was now driving every single service on Sunday. So after a couple of weeks of soul searching, the board and I came to some conclusions. We do not desire to be an online church. We are an on-site church. We are a country church. So regardless of our size, the church is geared to be task-focused, not time-driven. We want to focus on the worship and the fellowship and the preaching. We don't want to be focused so much on that clock. We're not a mega church, so we don't need to necessarily try and do some of the things that they are doing. And yet we want to minister to others. So if online allows that, then that's awesome. But we don't want the online part of our church to drive our on-site part of the church. Like I said, for 6 years we've been doing the audio and nobody even paid attention to it or knew that it was happening. That's not true going to a live stream platform like we have. We do appreciate people watching online. We want to continue to provide that, but we just can't let it drive what's happening on Sunday morning. So, and here's what happened. When we did it back in March and April, everybody in church was online. But that has now changed. In 2020, we started with about 125 families or so. When we opened back up in June. So we had 26 services in 2020 after COVID in our building. During those services, we averaged about 50 families at each service. That came out to about 125 people. Sometimes there'd be less than that. Sometimes there'd be 150 or so. So we've been doing this now for a while. We've had 26 services. Well, actually now we're probably closer to 30. And we've had during that time no real major outbreak. And looking at the numbers, since we started meeting in June, 86% of those people have been at a service in between June of 2020 and December of 2020. So what that means is about 14% of our church who were here at the beginning of 2020 have not come back. It comes out to about 18 families. 10 of those families really don't need to be here for medical reasons. I mean, we really we want to keep, and it's probably going to be a while before you get to come back, because we understand this thing's going to go on for a while with everything that's going on. So we still want to continue to be able to minister and provide the online part of a service. But we're going to move away from the live stream because what's happening is we need to focus on the people who are there on site and not allow the online part of it to drive it. So it was a little different when everybody was online, but those days are kind of now behind us. So here's what we're going to be doing. On Sunday, we continue to meet in the building. And when we get to the preaching part of our services, the guys are going to start recording the message. After the message is done, actually on most Sundays, even before the service is ended, they're going to encode the message. That takes about 5 to 7 minutes on a computer. Then they're going to upload it to Vimeo. And we did a test run this past week. It's going to take about 10 minutes or so to do that. So as soon as the service is over, they're going to do that. And then Vimeo will push it to Facebook and to YouTube. We don't know how it's going to take. We've never been able to do that on a Sunday yet. So this Sunday will be the first time that we do that. But we're thinking that if everything goes well, the service could be online as early as 11:30. We think that most Sundays it should be up and running on Vimeo, YouTube, and Facebook by noon. So we believe really that that's kind of the best solution to minister to everyone. We understand that we have about 20 to 25 people that are online at 10:30 on Sundays, and we understand that you won't get to interact with people watching at the same time. But very candidly, what it does guarantee right now is that you will have someone to watch, because the last 2 months have been that difficult for me personally and for my family, and I just decided that I can't continue to let it take the toll. I have to change some things. And so that's what we're going to be doing. You do have options. You can do a watch party if some of you want to get in touch with each other and set a time on Sundays. You can also, when you watch the video, you can comment on the video, and that lets people know that you saw it or that you're watching. But as a church, we really have to get back to who we are. We're a country church that meets together to fellowship and worship, encourage, and pray for one another. And we cannot continue to be driven by the technology and the clock. And it's just not who we are. So on Sunday, we are going back to being who we were. And when you feel comfortable enough to come back, you will come back to something that you recognize, something that really attracted you to this place, and God led you to this place in the first place. So if you do, I understand that for some of you it's kind of throwing you a curve. But if you really need to watch service at 10:30, please let me know. I can recommend a number of online services that you can watch. I know that because when I was out for COVID, I watched 4 services on the Sunday that I was out. So you do have some other options as well. But I hope you and trust that you understand. That you'll contact me if you have any questions. We love you, and we look forward to seeing you when you can come. But until then, we need to get back to being who we are and who God has called us to be, and what God has called us to do. So, Lord bless you. Have a great week. We'll be putting more out just as reminders because we kind of understand the change that we're doing. So we'll be adding some of that and just kind of letting you know, just to remind you. But if all goes well, hopefully by 11:30, between 11:30 and 12, we'll have everything online for you to continue to follow what we're doing there. So Lord bless you. Have a great week.